That's okay.
All right, so I'm going to read the notice here.
Make sure your, does your mic have to be on? No, yeah, right, you're using that mic. Never mind, on the computer mic, yep.
Oh, okay. I'm going to read the notice. I think I'm good. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. It will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link to join the public meeting, or from a telephone. The webinar ID number is 886-7389-1095. If you have not registered with Zoom, you will be asked for your name and email address. No participant ID is needed, just press pound when asked. Telephone users may dial 9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. This meeting and hearing will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting and hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. And then we'll move on with roll call, with the table being first and then moving on to Zoom. I am Josie Gilchrist.
Gerald Reed.
Lou Franco?
Debbie Lincoln.
Tim Wilsmer.
Carol Shambo.
Karen Minard.
Richard Burr. Evan Waters.
All right. So we'll move on to receiving an update from Rami with Over Under.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Happy New Year. We did meet less than a month ago, so I guess to confirm, we have the 2 sessions on February the 1st. Over Under will be at both of those. We're sort of working out the details as for the other consultants, but we'll be there. We've been coordinating with Josie about getting the word out. Someone has been doing an excellent job on getting the word out about the survey. Since we last spoke, I think we were at 230. We're now at 336. So there were a lot of responses over the holidays. I'm sorry I got on, just as I got on, I heard someone saying something about a printed version and difficulty printing from the online survey. That would make sense. It's not really designed to be printed from. But we do have a print version which we can supply the committee with if that's a preference or a desire rather. Otherwise, we continue to meet bi-weekly with Matt Brenner and Josie to just keep them abreast of what's going on. We met last Monday. We discussed. I think Matt is going to look into the possibility of having maybe the library take the model for display, the model that we presented and it was at our last meeting. We'll bring it back for these meetings, but it would be wonderful if it sort of had a home in Lunenburg, since it's a model room, and the library seems like a fitting place, or at least a temporary home. Other than that, I guess, big picture, this next meeting, the focus of this next meeting is to sort of test the water, so to speak, about the goals and vision that is going to shape the sort of the master plan, the planning effort that comes after. We have submitted, I think we sent you a link, it's also on the website, to existing conditions report rather. So the next sort of task is to, based on the survey is particularly important for this, to kind of gauge people's, responses, say, this is what we've heard, these are the things that we hear are important to you, and then to get feedback in person on the 1st of February about those. Once we've sort of solidified those, distilled them, and have, more confidence about them, later in the spring, those goals and principles will be used to shape the different scenarios for the future. So I'm trying not to be vague about this, and I apologize if it's confusing, but I don't mean it to be. Essentially, the idea is to present the community with a series of possible futures based on the goals that you have articulated. So we need to sort of get to those goals, sort of establish a kind of consensus, if you will, about those goals, and they will help shape sort of, these are the things we hear the community wants, and based on the existing conditions and our experience elsewhere, here are the possible ways we see that mapping out in the next few decades. And then we'll sort of go through those a few times with you in the spring, and probably again in the fall, and from that distill it to a single set of futures for the community. They'll be broken down into short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. So that'll help you with thinking about how they might be implemented as well. So that's just a sort of broad picture. We're now in that trying to establish the goals and principles phase. Does that make sense? And are there any questions?
So after this round of survey, survey number 2, I believe,
It is.
is complete,
Mhm.
how soon will the 3rd survey be available?
So realistically, and I think we talked about this the last time we met, I think in order to, it depends on what that 3rd survey is going to ask.
Okay, so you need to collect the data and hone it down from the
Yeah.
2nd survey.
So is it going to ask, and this is something I think we'll play a little bit by ear based on the feedback we get at the meetings and sort of distilling the 336 plus survey responses we have. Are we at a point where we feel we have real consensus and can begin to map out those scenarios, or do we need a sort of one more set of validation for the goals, right? And I think that's something that we'll probably be discussing as a group in February, right? Once we've had the meeting and distilled the results of the current survey that's still open. So, based on that, Josie, I think sometime in the spring there will be a next survey. The content of that survey, I would say, is TBD. If we feel pretty confident about the goals and principles, then I think we can move straight into the scenarios. And those take a little while to draw through, to kind of explain and whatnot, so that would push that survey back a little further. I seem to remember there was a May deadline, or a town meeting in May, perhaps not a town meeting, but something.
Do you know what
All-town
that date
meeting.
is?
It's the first Saturday in May.
So there may
Get a
be,
calendar.
I think that is a realistic timing for us to, you had asked us to, here we go. There's a caucus in early March, and then a town meeting early May. So I think that if you would like us to sort of be there for outreach at that early May meeting, I think remains a good deadline for the kind of the next iteration. And hopefully at that point, we'll be in a position where we can show some, if this, then, here are some things to consider, some scenarios, if you will. Is that helpful?
Yes. Would it be possible to add a PDF link for printable surveys on the Plan Lunenburg website for those that would prefer to just print it off and return it? I know that preferably the surveys would be done online so that you can collect the data quicker and analyze it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can put that online, we'll put it, yes. The answer is, we'll do that, we'll also send it to the committee as a link that you can.
That would be great. There are, as I'm kind of pushing for residents to complete the survey, I'm getting a lot of responses of those that prefer the paper surveys, so
No worries.
I think that would be
Then-
beneficial.
Then the only issue is, our collecting it, I think the first one we sent, we asked people to submit it to Adam and Annie.
And that's still the instructions on those, is to turn it into the Ritter Building, the planning department. Annie Aubrey, her name is on there, I believe.
I think we should probably add a date, because we're, getting closer to, I think if we can have all that information, say
Yeah,
the week before, then that would give us time to collate it and make sure it's part of the survey.
yes. And I apologize if you've already said so at this meeting. So in the past, you mentioned that you would want to wrap up the second survey by mid to late January, but with the event coming up on February 1st, are we now waiting until after that event to
No, I
close?
think,
You want it done before so that you can,
yeah, so we can use that data as part of the meeting.
okay.
So just looking at the calendar, I think it would make sense to say, well, I know the office is closed on Friday, so maybe Thursday, the 25th. So it gives people 3 weeks.
Okay, that's helpful.
And we'll send that to you tonight with a PDF link.
Okay. Was there anything else you would like to add as far as just a general update, Rami?
No, I mean, I'm still a little concerned that the renters, in terms of the overall population, are now even more underrepresented. I think we were at 8% when we last talked, and now 8%. But, I know it's not been easy. I know we brought this up before, and you all have.
Was there somebody here in the committee that had a connection with somebody in I think it was the Arrive apartment complexes?
I do.
Karen, you said that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that was in one of, maybe our second meeting, and I couldn't remember who said that.
Yeah.
But
One of our former chair of finance committee, Terry Birchfield, lives over there. And she's still pretty active, so. I do.
I would like to connect with them.
Okay.
Potentially, we could set up maybe a table, and I wouldn't mind passing out surveys one evening there. If I just had a connection and was allowed to do that. So if you wouldn't mind connecting us, that would be great.
Sure. And I think Evan has his hands up. Maybe he's looking to add to this.
I just have a question about if we know the percentage of renters in town in relation to the total number of people in town.
So from the census information we've gathered, it's about 12%.
Okay, and I didn't hear I heard 8%, but I didn't hear where we're at currently for.
We're at under 4, so it's 3 point something.
Okay, so we're well under the 12%.
We are, that's my concern.
Okay,
Not
thank you.
Okay. I did put a feeler on one of the town Facebook pages asking if there were any renters that would be able to take the survey, and I didn't get a response. So I can keep trying on that end. And then Karen, if you could connect us, maybe we could see what we could do as far as boosting the.
Sure. I think I'll connect you via, I'm going to be out of the country for a week and a half, so I don't want to wait till I get back. So I'll try to connect you guys via email tonight.
That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions on that topic before we move on?
I have a concern that's come up regarding the 300th committee, which is only 5 years away, but it's germane to this, I think. I think it's hard to tease out sometimes between asking questions about open space, which concerns conservation land, and open space, which concerns areas where we can gather people for events. And I'm wondering if you're able to, in the next survey, kind of tease out those two areas. Trying to plan for this 300th, we're finding it really hard to find places to gather people. We don't have a large common. We no longer have the area in front of the high school that we used to have, where we could gather people for events. We don't have any place right now as it stands, and I don't know if people are even thinking along those lines. And when you take a survey, people think of open space as conservation land, where people can walk, where it's forested, where it's not built up. And I'm wondering if there's any way that you would be able to tease out those two areas so they're different, so we can see if people have the same amount of concern that we on the 300th anniversary committee have about where can we gather large amounts of people to do the kinds of things we want to do, town fairs, bonfires, carnivals, fireworks, things that would gather the town together. If you would be able to do something that separates those two things in people's minds, that would be really helpful for us as a committee. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. In the questions, there's sort of multiple choice, or yes or no's, or how important is this to you? But after every one, we invited, there was a sort of optional opportunity to, fill out a little more information, and those have been very insightful, far more nuanced, obviously, and part of what we're going to try to do in advance of the next meeting is to tease out some of that nuance and precisely the sort of the difference between open space as conservation space and open space as sort of public realm, gathering space is one of the things that, that came to light in some of the responses. And there are also some interesting suggestions for how to address that I think will make their way into, for the scenarios, at least to see if people are interested.
Okay, thank you.
Richard, do you have something to add?
I just had a quick momentary blip in my internet and I didn't catch, it sounded like there were 2 parcels that were mentioned.
I don't
Are
think
you,
so.
are you talking about the open space conversation?
Correct.
Okay. Would you like to just quickly repeat what you said about?
No, I was just asking if we could tease out when it refers to open space to make sure that people understand the difference between open space conservation and open space meaning areas where people could gather, which we don't have right now. As opposed to the area that we used to have in front of the high school, where people could gather to have carnivals and fairs and fireworks and things like that, which is gone now.
Okay, no, I just, you were talking about 2 somethings and thank you for clarifying. I thought you were talking about 2 open space
No.
parcels to start using as gathering spaces.
No, we're at a loss to try to find them, so I just
Yeah,
wanted
'cause
to,
the biggest ones tended to be in the center of town. I don't know conservation land, if we have any that would have any access for a large gathering.
well, that's the concern, is large areas with parking that are flat and open that we could entertain large groups of people.
Regarding, like, the idea of the center of town, when I lived in Marlborough, like, once a year, they'd close off basically the entire Main Street and use that as a gathering area. Do we have the ability to kind of cordon off some of this space and?
We have cordoned off Memorial Drive, for
Yeah.
example. That's one of the things that we're talking about doing, is having a supper. and
Sure.
Using Memorial Drive or maybe Main Street, but we're talking about,
Recording in progress.
My thought was from like the little gazebo park square down there to the stop sign where you go down past by where the town pound is, and then essentially if you go from the post office here, there's a cut around that lets people go all the way past the high school. So theoretically, cordoning off this intersection, we could theoretically make a large, easily detoured space. What would we have to do to put forward something like that?
well, that's a whole nother story.
All right, fair enough.
I just wanted to tease out open space, meaning gathering space versus conservation space on these surveys.
To put it on the
Yeah,
survey to
absolutely.
see if people are going to be thinking about that or have considered it, or if they're
Right.
thinking about it as the same.
As a safe.
Yeah,
I latched onto the wrong point.
that's okay. Evan, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I wonder if we should take it a step further, and I think you were just starting to touch on putting it on the survey, but almost asking the public as well about open spaces for gathering ideas like this beyond the 300th anniversary. And then maybe even listing options between the idea of closing downtown center or reaching out to some of the larger farms that we have in town. If I remember correctly, Stillman had a fair just before COVID hit. So I know that there are farms that would probably be open to that option as well, and I'm sure they could be incentivized, and they have plenty of space for parking and pieces, but just, I think it might be helpful to the planning committee or the anniversary committee to kind of get that survey out and kind of piggyback off of this survey as well.
Oh, we will be. I'm just trying to get it in people's minds when they take the survey.
Yeah, if I could, I'm sorry, if I know 300th anniversary, and I'll cut right to the chase. We want a place for large flames, right? We want to have closing off this area down here is good for certain types of things, but some kind of open, flat space where the bonfire might be able to come back. That was a great community gathering event, so.
So consistent, ongoing, available space.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
That's not private.
yeah.
Anyway,
But I think you've used all the right words in terms of open space, because that does have a very technical definition. The other one being community gathering space, that is not the technical definition of open space. So we can't do a bonfire on open space as it's defined. Yeah.
People may
So-
be looking at the survey thinking, well, we have a lot of open space.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm looking back at the survey, even though we wrote it, it's been a while. There were two questions back to back. The first one, or two statements, and asking folks to respond. The first one is Lunenburg needs to improve its open spaces and recreational opportunities. The second one is to bring the community together, the town needs to increase and improve spaces for gathering and events. And for both of them, the responses overwhelmingly agree or strongly agree. So that, I guess what I'm saying is that distinction is already embedded in the survey. We'll be able to get to the heart of that. But thinking about the 300 anniversary and the need for sort of a flat, flammable space is helpful for us spatially to think about.
Yeah, that's a resounding thing that I hear. When's the bonfire coming back? Well,
Exactly.
Yeah. And
when
that-
we have land.
I just don't want them to link open space and community gatherings with thinking conservation, because they're together.
Little citizen like education on what
Yeah.
the term.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that bonfire, that requires a huge amount of space. I mean, it was, the last bonfire I remember being at, it was literally impossible, physically impossible to get within like 80 feet of that thing. That's how hot it was. So, and, so it requires a huge amount of space and not hilly because, if it gets out of control, the fire will climb up a hill. So it has to be
Rolling
flat and
fire.
large. So,
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Were there any other questions for Rami before we move forward? Okay. We'll move on to the update on the event for the February 1st meeting. There are 2 meeting times and they're duplicates. That's something that we get questions on now is it the same meeting with just 2 different sessions? 2 completely separate meetings just to allow attendees an option that works best for their schedule. So the first will be, both meetings will be held at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center in the big room on February 1st, which is a Thursday. The first meeting will be from 4 to 6. Then there will be a break, and the second meeting will be from 6:30 to 8:30. Rami, will the model will be there? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So the model will be there for both meetings. We're just gonna set it up at the very beginning, have it open and available for both meeting times. But again, 2 separate meeting times. They're just duplicates. You don't have to attend both. It's just going to be one after the other, just to allow residents more flexibility with their schedules. So, if we can clarify that whenever folks ask. I created an event on Facebook, but I could only put one meeting time on there, which I'm wondering now if that did more harm than good. I tried to put in multiple different places that there are 2 different meeting times. We may get a lot from 4 to 6, depending on who saw the Facebook event. But I just want people to know that it's happening, so. That's what's happening on February 1st. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about, Rami, as far as the February 1st meeting? I think you already kind of said a little bit about that, but was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, the best, you all are the best, advertisements.
Yeah,
So, if you can, get the word out to your,
yeah.
friends groups, then I think the likelihood of good attendance will increase.
Fantastic.
We're happy to support that in whatever way you think is useful, whether that's,
Just be there
creating
with the
more
model.
thought. We'll definitely be there. But in terms of getting the word out, if it's helpful for us to make other flyers or posts that material you can use in emails or print material or whatnot. We're happy to do that.
I did, I believe, forward a flyer over to everybody. Did?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
You
good.
did.
All right. That one should be, that one's a little more straightforward than the last. There's no two separate, so they're printable. I did also want to add that there are paper surveys available in the town hall and at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. So if there's anybody watching, listening, leader that prefers a paper survey, those are two places that I know of right off the bat that are carrying the paper surveys. And once they're filled out, you just take them right across the street to the Ritter Building and turn them into Annie Aubrey with the planning department.
We're also collecting them at the LAAC.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. And then Rami with Over Under is going to have his team add a PDF link to print off from the planlunenburg.org website. There's also an option to fill out the survey online. Does anybody have any questions about the February 1st? It's pretty straightforward. All right, we're going to move on to committee comment. Does anybody have any comments?
I have none.
Okay. Any public comments? Yes? Yes. Come on up.
I'm standing. Hi, Kim Duffy, 1479 Mass Ave. So I was at the last meeting, so I'm just starting to just get more involved and have a voice in what's happening in the plan. I just had a few questions, kind of relating to the last master plan we did about 20 years ago. Is that available for anyone to view online? Just curious, what it looked like and how did we meet it, or change of plan or anything? Since we're doing a new one. Kind of like to do a lessons learned in general. If there's anything we wanted to do but weren't able to or whatever. So.
The last time I looked on the town website, I think there was just a description of what a master plan was. But I may be looking in an entirely wrong place. Do you know anything about that?
I do not know the answer to the question on whether you can find it online. It is a good question. It certainly ought to be made available online if it's not. Certainly you can get your hands on it somehow. I will make inquiries as to if it's not already online, how it can be put there.
Thanks.
All right. So.
And then, do you have any suggestions on, are you asking for kind of a comparison to what more of a modern master plan would look like up against it, or just to have it available to reference when the new master plan comes out?
Yeah, I guess I could use it for a lot of things. I was just curious, when we made the plan, but did we meet the plan?
Yes.
And maybe were there still some things lingering that we might not think of now that we still wanted to do? So it could go in a lot of directions, but I was curious if we had access to it. Is there a paper copy? I mean, I prefer electronic, but I'm just curious, it's probably at town here. I don't know, someone has it.
Sure that there is,
Yeah.
but I know that the town just redid the website, and I'm wondering if maybe it wasn't transferred over. Because I know that there's continuous edits being done on the website, and I'm just wondering if it is actually available in digital form and that it maybe hasn't been made available yet, because they are still adding things, so we can ask about that and make sure and definitely make it available.
Fun long reading. Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And different topic, we're about how many people we were trying to get answers from for the survey. Was there like a goal for like a minimum resident percentage that like was trying to be met? So I don't know what we are at right now in total, but I just want to make sure like if we had a goal before we would make the plan of how many people we wanted to like get answers from, so it would be like statistically relevant. So I wasn't sure if there was a goal.
Rami, do you have an answer?
Yeah, I mean, there are, it's, depending on who you ask, the percentage varies. I've seen as high as 8%, which I think is unrealistic for the age we live in. I think that's more of a kind of marketing rather than sort of community engagement sort of target. I mean, we were sort of amongst ourselves and with the consultants, we said we'd be very happy if we hit 250. And I think we surpassed that by some distance, which, I mean, right now, I think we're at, point, well, I don't want to say, before I do the math, but, we're nowhere near 8%, but we're far more than I thought we would get. And far more than we've gotten in other communities, frankly.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, 8%. That's seems kind of low, but if that's like a high goal, that's interesting.
I can add that real quick. To put it in perspective, last election, only 130 something people voted.
130?
Out of a town of 11,000, I think we are now, roughly.
Yeah.
So
I
Very
think
low.
the math on that, we've currently got 1/3% response from the town on the surveys.
Oh, what was that?
Just a third of a percent
Oh, wow.
is, I think, what our current
I just
response
did
rate
the
is.
math. It's
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah, okay.
Roughly.
Yeah.
But it's 336 we have, right, came back?
Yeah, but a town of 11,000 though.
Yeah,
Theoretically, not everyone's
right, but
gonna-
300 is 3% of 10,000. So we are better than a third of a percent, we're at like 3%, right? Isn't that 3%?
I'm bad at math.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the
I
math.
need a
Yeah.
calculator.
Of course,
But yeah,
many of them are kids, too. Do they get to
That's
take this thing?
true.
The
Like
survey?
minors?
So they passed it out in the high school.
Oh,
The high
okay,
school, they're
okay,
not the
yeah. I
little
was wondering, they
ones.
don't have to be voters.
Right.
Okay, yeah, all right. So
Yeah,
we can count everybody down to,
if you
Toddlers.
can read.
Richard, did
as
you
far as
have,
the denominator.
Richard, did you have a response that you would
Yeah,
like?
just to answer the question, the 2002 master plan is available on the website
Okay.
in the
It is?
document center, so if you just do a search on master plan 2002, it's 160 pages of fun reading.
Thank you very much for looking at
I was
exciting.
looking for it online. Thank you for answering that and saving the work. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I know we received a digital copy of it, but I didn't know if that was online or posted. I mean,
These are good questions because I'm learning too, so. Do you have any more?
Yeah, just one more kind of topic. So, kind of representing the Green Community Committee, I just wanted to bring up that there's a Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan that has energy reduction goals by 2025 and 2030. So, that was put out last June, well, maybe 2 Junes ago at this point. It's because it's 2024 now. Anyways, I wasn't sure if something like that would be incorporated into the master plan of how we can try to meet those goals of that plan, as well as continue to be a green community in good standing, there's a few criteria that we need to continue to upkeep, which has to do with solar, energy reduction. At this point, we've done a lot of things, but to continue to do those. There's more federal grants and whatnot, so without being a green community in good standing, we wouldn't be eligible for a lot of those grants that would help us, fulfill those requirements by the state. So there's some grants that the state's still putting out, like what different ways we can do to meet those goals, that will be helped by the grants. Some of them are suggestions are like electrifying school buses if that's possible. So they're a predictable route, adding in like charging stations and whatnot. And I know a lot of these things are topics that the Green Community Committee is working on, but we want to expand that outreach and let people try to know more and try to maybe incorporate it into the plan if possible. But I'm not sure if those types of things are incorporated into the plan in general, since I haven't looked at the old one or others.
What was the name of the document you mentioned?
It was the Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So yeah, they have a goal of reducing the state emissions by 28% by 2025 and 47% by 2030. And that's based on 1990 baselines. So right now for green communities, we have to reduce our energy by 20%, and we've been able to maintain that since we've been a green community. But 28% and 47% are much higher than that. So it's been kind of difficult to even get to 20. So I think it's going to need like more help. So, but yeah, maintaining being a green community is important to get those grants for these other things that we'll need to do. But that's all I had.
Thank you. Did you say your name when you walked up?
No, Kim Duffy.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I just said my address.
It's okay.
One out of two things by the end there. All right.
So they know when they do the notes.
Yes.
The minutes. Okay. Thank you very much. Very helpful. Rami, did you have any comments on?
No, I mean, I would say that, the CECP is definitely something we'd like the community to consider. And I think, like Kim said, if you, want to continue to have access to some of those grants, you'll need to continue to be a green community in good standing. Like any other initiative, they require community will, and we will continue to bring it up and make our recommendations. But we need to hear from you all that this is something you believe in and pursue. And we've had some good communication with the Green Community Committee. Frankly, some of it came after we had sort of begun the survey, so it may not, the questions of the survey don't necessarily reflect that, and I want to make sure that their concerns are not left behind because of the order of things. So we'll continue to bear that in mind and try to bring it to the front, to the surface, so to speak.
All right. Is there anything else on that? All right, we're going to move on to adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And then I think we're supposed to do roll call. So my name is Josie Gilchrist. Aye.
Gerald Reed, aye.
Lou Franco, aye.
Debbie Lincoln, aye.
Tim Wilsmer, aye.
Carol Ashambo, aye.
Karen Menard, aye.
Richard Bursch, aye.
Evan Waters, aye.